Alright, so I'll tell you mostly about the approach, I think, because the tool is handwritten and it's not Vue.js, not React, and not Redux. So, but the approach is quite interesting, which you can use, I don't know, every day. We use it every day. So yeah, my name is Peter. Yeah, where is this? No, so yes, my name is Peter. And I kind of love to code JavaScript these days because of all this bubble magic, all the TypeScript and flow things flying around. And we started to use new syntax, which is also nice and looks nice. Yeah, so before I didn't like it, but I still did it because the front end is amazing. But now I love everything. Okay, so to be a good citizen, open source citizen, I need to tell that this talk is based heavily on this, especially on this nice thing, Redux Saga test plan. If you used Sagas before, you would recognize immediately the idea. Plus, I added a bit of snapshots on top, so it's kind of very much automatic. And a bit of babel plugins, but this is nothing super special. But the combination is nice. Yeah, so this is it. This is about testing. So this is the code which alerts hi, and maybe a Lisp developer would love to test this code as is, but I think we all agree that we need to change code and sometimes even the approach to how we write code to make it testable. So in this talk I will sometimes say, hey, this is better to do this way, not because I'm kind of teaching you, but to make it testable in this way, the code might be needed to be changed a little bit. But normally nothing much. Okay, now I know what's wrong. I don't have internet. Okay. Right? No. Oops. Okay, this works. Now it works. Yeah, and the idea behind the testing in our team is to cover your back. So normally when we deploy, we don't have manual QAs who really click through every little deploy, so we have continuous delivery. Yay! Yeah, I don't know, maybe you all have this nice thing in your teams, but that was a great achievement for my team. But anyway, we don't automate testing yet at a degree we should do. So we do a lot of unit testing, at least, and everything is covered. Why? Because we test business logic. We don't test libraries. Libraries are out there. So if you are a library writer, you do TDD and you're happy, right? Because it's everything understandable, you control everything, you change it when you want to change it. And we do not, because we test business logic. And business logic changes maybe 3 times a day, and then you just forget about writing tests. You say no, 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 and yeah, and everybody say yeah, of course. But yeah, I think we found kind of a nice balance. Again, strange. Yeah, and now to hook you up, I'll show you a little demo. So after this boring, obvious thing, I have here a function which you should see clearly, right? Mm-hmm. The forest people, do you see the? Yes. Yeah. All fine? Cool. So this is simple. I export inc function, and I want to test it. So there is some test which tests it. So if I make it 2, the test gets broken. All fine. But the magic starts here. Let's imagine that this is an internal detail of my business logic, and I don't want to export it. I just want it to be a separate function. Let's say maybe a side effect, some kind of check, general check of my business logic DSL. So I create little helper functions inside of my file. I don't want to have them outside and then import it and then tell everybody, please don't use these helpers functions because they are for me, they're not for you and stuff. So in my team, we decided to just have these things private to the module. But then how to test them, right? The test works. There is some magic which is weird. It actually reacts to the save and everything. So your Jest works and my Jest works. So there is some magic, I'll explain later. And this actually exposes everything what you have in your module. Only in testing. So if you want to then import this import Inc from Inc.js in the application, you will fail. So it will say there is nothing, so you cannot build and everything. So all fine, encapsulated and hidden. Okay, so magical demo. Yeah, how it works? Like briefly, there is a babel plugin. Okay. Much better. So when I test something, oops. Better. I think that's best. Okay, so it does some magic. This is the babel plugin. Still not that big. I've seen worse. And it actually on the fly can transpile the module into this function. So it's how it's called, factory function for the module. So all the code gets wrapped into one little function which accepts the scope and then defines all your nice functions on the and also variables on this. Okay, yeah, what's wrong? I have no idea what's wrong. But if you don't like it, okay, it doesn't like it. But that's syntax error, it's not in my code, it's in babel. So yes, it actually creates, yes. So here you see what I always ask on this is hoisting. Yeah, I use hoisting here, for good, only for good. So yeah, some magic, it converts your module into a function, so why, right? And the why means that, okay, we can then compose this module with some decorators. So you have a module, it's a function, and it always returns you in a testing environment a new module. So you don't need to mock anything, you don't need to reset mocks. If you have some stateful things in your module, for each test they will be completely reset. So it's kind of pure module mocker. Yeah. And now you need to choose, because I have a lot of information. Yeah, so I made this presentation 2 times, and normally it takes quite a lot of time. And here, giant roll jumps. And what do you need? What do you want to know first? How babel plugin works, or maybe we go into some business logic testing, or possibly we test a very combinatorially explosive module, or we discover a recorder which records side effects. All sounds like Chinese, right? Okay, so I'd look into the babel plugin detail. Who is interested in babel plugin detail? 3, okay. Maybe fragile business logic. Okay, no, that's right. Okay, maybe combinatorial explosion. We will test a logging registration form which can have different states. No, yeah, okay, also to, oh god. That's nice, actually, then the presentation will cover everybody. And then recorder, if you know a reader monad from Haskell, you would kind of know how to do this without any modules in Haskell, but in JavaScript you still need some wrappers. But this thing does this. You can actually tell that your big function, which reads from everywhere and does everything, will just require some values and give back some values. And this thing stores everything as snapshot. So, who wants to jump directly there? Because they are all interchangeable. All right, then let's start with the babel. Cool. So what it can do, normally it actually can transpile any code if you have flow it will just delete all the flow things. It understands not only constants, it understands the closures. So if I want to create, and then I will have x, and then when I change x, you would expect that later I can actually change this x from outside. So it actually creates a class. Yeah, if you are a functional guy, you would not like this, but it only does this in the memory. Then you don't use it as a class. So how the test looks like. So this is about babel plugin still. Jest knows with this babel plugin that when you import Introscope, it will do this magic, wrap everything in your function, little function. And this function is called Introscope. So the babel plugin sits between your code and Jest. Your code gets transpiled, wrapped into a function called Introscope, and then you can import it. So this is a little bit of magic. If you know babel plugin rewire, this is a kind of functional version of babel or rewire module. Okay. So what it does actually, it creates a new let's say object of all your functions of all your variables on the fly. So for example, if we want to do this 1 equals 1, then we just add 1 here. All works. But then we actually want then to have here scope, and we then call scope. That was destruction. Yeah, so all fine. But then we can change scope 1 equals 7, and the test breaks. So it's const here, right? Strange, how is it possible? And it's not exported. Yeah, this is possible because Introscope returns an object with, let's see, with one, it's an object with property 1 and property inc. So what's nice with this solution is that then you can iterate over your nice functions and have them, for example, all automatically mocked or spied on or removed, or you can just easily make scope inc something else, which returns, which returns always 0, and the test will be always like 0. So now you have control with this babel plugin, which is quite simple. You have control over your module without anything else. So you have Jest. If you use Jest, you will probably use some transpilation phase. So I think it's babel RC, I think. Yeah, you just add this nice plugin. Here it's referred in a strange way, but that's it. And then you can import Introscope, and then you play with your module. So you control your module. Yeah, I think this is it. If we go deeper in how it works, just to have fun, it has a nice function called, yeah, it's a huge function. Oh god, no, so we will not go there, sorry. If you're interested in the details of the babel plugin, please come after and ask me. I really like to play with ASTs. I did some transpilers before. It was Ruby to JavaScript, very naive way when I was super young. And like 5 years ago, I participated in this Opal project. If you know Ruby and you wanted to code Ruby for frontend, that does exactly this. Takes a Ruby, creates a huge AST, then transforms this AST to something what JavaScript serializer can do, and then just creates you JavaScript which you can run without any performance implications, and of course not the full. So if you like it, go there, come to me. I really love it, and I can share some nice stuff. Okay, so then about the Jest Snapshots, they can snapshot not only React stuff, which I think you would not like me to tell you about, right? but it can actually snapshot any data structure, numbers, objects, arrays, so not only JSX. All right, and now time for nice demo. So what we've done on top of this Introscope thing, because you know Introscope itself is quite boring. You have the scope, you then call methods on the scope, quite easy. We all did this, so it would be like new module, right, in the past, and then new class, and then you can also manipulate anything, but nothing. It was just like, okay, we pretend that we're functional and we like ES6, and then we just do this. But the funny part starts that you can actually cover things which we didn't cover before automatically. So here I also have an Introscope for ABC module. This is ABC module. It has three functions and one bigger function which calls other functions. These things might be parts of your DSL, so maybe read from the file, save configuration, or send post requests somewhere, and you have them imported or you have them implemented in a more detailed way. And then you have this big thing, okay, in this case it's small, but you have some big hairy business logic which you want to test. And then here comes this effects logger. This is actually the main juicy part. So now you know that there is babel plugin, which is cool, but this one is very much amazing for me, I would say. So what it does actually, it gets the Introscope function. It's a decorator. It decorates it, and then it's still Introscope function, but it knows how to spy on things, how to mock things. And you can actually say, okay, I want to track all effects, all calls on A, B, and C, and then I just call F and see what happens. So what happens actually is that we've got a new snapshot written, and this snapshot looks like this. Yeah, so can I do this? Yeah, wow, good. So automatically, without any hard code, it creates effects log. It tells me, okay, in this particular case, this F function called A with 1, B with 2, and C with 3. And this example is quite simple, but the funny part will come a bit later. So now you see how it works, and let's say that I had I made a mistake. I forgot that I need to call A first, so my test fails. And this is the snapshot defer. It supports the syntax quite well. So it says, okay, it was B, no, it was B here, now B is there. Do you agree with this change? And I say, yeah, actually, I agree with this change. I update the snapshot, and now everything is fine, everything is green. And then we ship it, everything works, but then somebody says, no, you need to change it back. And I change it back, and I again see, aha, now this is right. And I say, okay, nice. So before we did it only for the values our tested function returns. Now, yeah, so if you can make a function pure, you don't need this. But if you want to have some side effects, opening and closing, and abstract them out completely, you can do this. All right, so far I think you understood everything, because it's quite simple, only 3 functions. And we have here a better example. We go here to do. Yeah, that's a business logic example. We all know that it is super important to track events for business intelligence. If we don't track to do update, that means that nothing happens. We never, okay, maybe not to do update, but maybe some success. We don't get money from our, I don't know, advertiser. So we need to track these things. Normally, how you would do this, you would create some mock somewhere, you wrap something and you provide some structures. And in this way, in this example, the track event is just kind of imported side effect. And then I can save it, I can run it, so where is it? The new one. and the new one is this to-do thing, sorry. And it then actually runs it, the test, of course. So I have two tests, create to-do with good fields and create to-do with bad fields. So this first one is, the first one and the second one, they are main usage scenarios. And what I want to check is that hide loading spinner is always there. So in this case, I actually track everything to have more visual effect. But what I can check is that if I forget to do this, what happens? Then my snapshot of side effects will tell me, hey Peter, you actually after track event, this one or this one, you normally want to hide loading spinner, otherwise everything is blocked. And in both scenarios, I have this check for free. So you write this code, you write usage scenarios, you mock everything what's important, and then you just match that, you check that effects match snapshot. And then when you need to change the business logic, so for example, you don't want to track to do update success, you want to say update like 1 and then here 2, I don't know. You don't need to go here and rewrite your test manually. You come here again, this is the snapshot benefit, and you just update snapshot and you have it there. So now the track of function execution becomes a data. So before it was like some state, you need to check here like expect some mock to be called with, and then you give some very complex structure because you need to pass the real structure, and then it becomes boring and people stop doing this. With this thing, it is completely automated. You go there back and you bring it back because that was a mistake of some stakeholder. Yep.
The question, I can see this making a lot of sense, but don't you also hide the logic? I mean, if you see there, if you test the mock, that everybody who's reading the test sees that, okay, this is what it's looking for and this is what's missing. If you just update the test, the snapshot, is that sort of hidden, or?
Normally, what we will do, yes, a good question. This is the general question about snapshots. Always have. So normally, if you change it, like for example, we had it in 2 places, all fine, green, so I can refactor, and then I forget it. Then what I do, I actually update it, and then I have in my pull request this hide loading spinner, and my peer reviewer will say, hey, why? It's not in the requirements, so why did we stop showing hide loading spinner? Before this, if you don't use this thing, it would be like before I checked expect hide loading spinner to be called in general, right? So I need, and before calling this nice thing, I need to say const hide loading spinner just fn, and we did it a lot. Like we did it so much a lot, we had to do this automated. And then you actually give it somehow to this update to do as the first argument, which is all requirements. We also did it. So instead of having this imported show hide loading spinner, I just give it there so that I can actually test the side effects. So this thing becomes very much like in Angular when you define your dependency injection things and you have this long line of what you want to be injected, which was amazing when I first seen that. And then my team said, we are React guys. We just want to have nice syntax, import stuff, and this is it. I said, what can I say? Because it's really nice to just have things imported and don't care, because this is how you write code. You don't speak always defining everything in a very long German loyal things to be completely perfectly clear, right? You want to have some nice words and some slang and some stuff. So this gives us this opportunity to then mock everything, even the things you write in the module and you don't want to export. So, yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and I think it's also related to not being experienced with snapshot testing. So it's
okay. Yeah, that's the thing. So actually, we use snapshots so much. If you are interested in snapshots in general, I would be really happy to answer all your questions. We started doing this a year and a half ago, and we do this every day. And we covered everything with snapshots, and it showed that people really start doing testing, even if they ever refuse to do this. Especially guys who work mostly with components and CSS things. They say, no, testing, it's not for me because I need to see how it looks. Then I click and then everything is fine and then we ship it and it works. And then you come to this code and you try to change things in components and then you ask, were there any tests? You say, okay, you just open it, click it. And then you ask, okay, maybe we can formalize it. And then there comes this shallow render in React. Sorry, I'm a React guy. I hope you will still come afterwards to me. But anyway, I think this idea of a pure function from a state to a result is a nice idea. And so people started to use a really write test. And then the guy wanted to change the teams with a big company, and he changed the teams, and he was the first one to tell about snapshots to others. And they started using snapshots, and I keep getting the feedback like once a year, like, thank you, Peter. Then a year, and then, okay, that was a good idea. So yeah, and okay, one last thing to wrap up, because we have time normally only for one example. I will tell you what are other examples I bought, so we can talk about it. But this one is also very interesting. So you see that I created a little DSL question, are fields valid? And I take something like form and I check if title is empty or not. And here we don't have title at all, so I don't mock title completely. Strange, right? How can I do this? So actually I never, in this business logic, so this is an area where it is as close to the pure logic, pure steps as possible. So I push all the details up in this module. It's still very relevant to this module. This is why we do not export it. This is why, but here I want to only ask questions in my new language, kind of language. So here I only check if the fields are okay, running this are fields valid. So, and fields are used like here and there, which means that I just, to check this moment, to check the case when fields are not okay and to test when fields are okay, I just need to change this, are fields valid? So in this, fields are good, and I just make are fields valid returning true. So all this my side effect, this verb now means always true. In the second case, it is a copy paste of the above one. We like to copy paste sometimes. It just returns false, whatever I give it. So this gives me the possibility to not mock the whole Redux state and to not mock this title thing to be empty or an object or something. So I don't care actually. I just say that in this, when I test exactly this little function, everything else should be tested in a TDD way, of course. So it's not a recursive module. You cannot test everything with Introscope or the side effects because in Haskell you can, I think. But I don't like Haskell. I just hope that those guys did everything right, possibly. But here, yeah, so we try to have this hairy, huge business logic functions to rely on very much super simple. So do you really need to test this thing? I doubt that, but it would be also cool to test it, but I think, yeah, so, yeah, that's another question. Anyway, here you can see that I don't mock anything, thanks to this nice idea. This is what I promised you would be the big thing. So even without Introscope, without side effects logger, it's just, you know, proof of concept how to make this approach easy-going thing. If you split out atomic side effects, atomic decisions out of your business logic, big functions, it reduces the burden to test it, and it's of course it's readable by default. So yeah, and here we just get advantage of this. Cool. Another thing is register. It has email, password, terms, and then in testing, I have all the use cases. This is all the use cases: empty, wrong, valid, empty, wrong, normal, empty, short, normal, unaccepted terms and conditions and accepted. And then I just make it generative. So all the tests, I create tests on the fly, I run tests, I get the side effects, I store them to snapshot, and I don't care if it's correct. Because in this case, in these scenarios, we write this big function of registration, we ship it to pre-live, we test it manually, and then we get this code like very much tested. If you then want to change it, you change it and you see that you will of course get this things changes what was changed and in which exact combination of input fields, which is also fine. We are getting out of time. And then temp file test. Okay, so temp file, this thing also has two side effects, now and rand. And now you see it's date now, and rand is just random thing. So to test this, we would really need to mock now and rand and just be 0 and 1, and then we just test the temp file has this /var/stuff, all fine. But if the now was a call to some very massive endpoint which returns a huge object, you will what I do normally, I copy this object manually and paste in the test file. But with this nice approach, also like 30 seconds about it, this effects logger supports not only tracking the effects you give to the outside world, but also it can record what the outside world gives you. So in a amazing case, you just write test and you run it against staging system or live system once. It remembers all things like all random numbers, all the data, dates, everything. So it wraps your big business logic function in a bubble, and the bubble is completely controlled. Like people test games, making everything serializable. They just remember all the random generated sequences, and then they can run everything exactly pixel to pixel as it was laid by a tester, and they record everything. And this is how it works in our simple world of login and register. But the idea is the same, so you can have side effects, which means that you pull something and you push something. Pushing something means that you can control it, but pulling something normally means that you need to mock it manually every time. And this recorder just knows. Let's run it for a second. Yeah, so snapshots written, update, everything should be there. Please do, yes. Okay, no, yeah, no, I need to update it. Yes, so what it creates, also nice thing, very much record. So yeah, it recorded current time and the result of rand. So now having the record, and then it plays it back. Now tests run automatically green for all inputs. This one was the cutting edge, so I prepared it a week ago for another presentation, and we didn't, I think, have time for that. But this time it is there. This thing inspires me super much, because maybe the code is not nice, what you've seen, maybe the babel plugin is kind of, why? But if we can do this, testing of big enterprise piles of logic might be pleasant. And I don't know where we can go further from that. But this is, it's not time traveling, but kind of also nice thing to do. Do I have anything else? Sorry. No? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, no, wrapping up. It is beta, but we use it in production. Performance almost for free. So if you already have babel transpilation, it doesn't add anything, almost nothing. It covers everything with babel covers, because babel is amazing. Yeah, so it is very much customizable. People wanted to like ignore date, ignore console, and you can add magic comments because babel supports magic comments out of the box. I wasn't the smart guy to invent them. I just read, are there any magic comments in this module? Yes, then I parse them, and this is it. Yes, it supports Flow, not TypeScript, because we use Flow. If you use TypeScript a lot, you can help needed like badly, because I'm the only developer currently on this. We were two, and then we were split and stuff. But if you like to play with tools like this, very much welcome. And then, yes. Nice, fine. Norman, there, where? Yeah. Hello. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
and you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, thank you.